His son invited a lonely stranger to dinner. Dad had no idea she was a billionaire CEO. It was Christmas Eve in Chicago, and the wind cut like glass. Downtown was draped in holiday lights, but beneath the glow, everything felt cold. People rushed past each other in a blur of coats and bags, their arms full, but their eyes empty. Amid the crowd stood Harper Lane, CEO of Lane Equity Partners. Powerful, polished, alone. Her heels clicked over the concrete with precision, her breath rising in disciplined clouds. She wasn't going home for Christmas. She didn't have a home, just properties, penthouses, places she paid for but never lived in. That's when she heard it. "Would you like to have dinner with us, ma'am?" The voice came from below, small, clear, disarming. Harper turned, startled. A little boy in a red puffer coat stood beside a park bench. His cheeks were pink from the cold curls damp with snow, and he held out a brown paper bag like it was fine china. "We saved a seat," he said earnestly. "My dad says nobody should eat alone on Christmas." Harper blinked. The boy had no idea who she was. No idea she'd made headlines last month for firing 400 people in a single afternoon. No idea her face had been on the cover of Business Sphere under the headline, "Compassion is a Cost." Still, he smiled at her like she was worthy of warmth. From across the sidewalk, a man approached, flannel jacket, worn jeans, cautious eyes. "Logan," he called, "you can't just—" He stopped short when he saw Harper. Then recognition hit. His expression shifted. Protective, wary. "I'm sorry," he said, stepping in. "He didn't mean to bother you." Harper opened her mouth about to dismiss them, but instead she surprised even herself. "I'm not bothered," she said, "just surprised." Logan beamed. "We live close, just spaghetti and toast. But there's always room." The man, his father, looked torn, but Harper, used to saying no to everything human, did something she hadn't done in years. She said yes. The apartment was 2 blocks away, nestled above an aging laundromat with a flickering neon sign that read, "Spin City." The stairwell smelled like detergent and memories. The walls had seen better days, and so had the man leading her up. His name was Travis Moore. He didn't offer it at first. He just unlocked the door, gave it a slight push, and said, "It's not much." Inside was a small living room with secondhand furniture and the soft hum of a radiator that sounded like it was trying its best. The warmth wasn't from the heater, though it came from something else. A kind of lived-in quiet. A softness. A small paper-crafted Christmas tree sat on the coffee table, propped up with duct tape. Logan pointed to it proudly. "I made it at school. The star's a velociraptor, 'cause Mom liked dinosaurs." Harper smiled despite herself. There were 2 chairs at the dinner table, one with a booster seat. The other had a cushion carefully folded on top. "That one's for you," Logan announced. "But you didn't know I was coming," Harper said. "We always leave it out," Logan replied matter-of-factly. "Just in case someone needs it, that's what Dad says." Travis's jaw clenched slightly. He busied himself plating the food, overcooked spaghetti and buttered toast, and yet Harper felt strangely honored. She sat. They ate. No one asked her what she did. No one demanded anything. No networking, no performance. Just a boy who believed strangers could be friends and a man who cooked like it mattered. At one point, Harper noticed Travis watching her, still skeptical. "What made you follow us?" he asked. She looked at Logan, who was now humming to himself between bites. "I think I just didn't want to be alone," she said. Travis didn't nod. He didn't say much. But when he placed a clean fork beside her untouched plate, it said more than enough. This wasn't a grand gesture. It was a door cracked open by a child and hesitantly left ajar by a father who had every reason to keep it shut. Dinner ended, but Harper didn't rush out. She lingered at the table, hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug that still held the warmth of weak coffee. The silence in the room wasn't awkward. It was gentle, like everyone knew rushing would spoil it. Logan stood and ran to his room. When he returned, he held something behind his back, grinning. "I made you something?" He handed her a crumpled sheet of printer paper, drawn in thick crayon strokes. 3 stick figures sat at a table, one with long hair, one with spiky hair, and a tiny one with a star above his head. Underneath, in crooked handwriting, it said, "Miss Harper, your chair is always here." For a second, Harper couldn't speak. She was used to awards, trophies, titles, but this was sacred. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took it. "Thank you, Logan." He shrugged. "We leave that chair for Mom, too. She died when I was a baby, but Dad says her seat should never be empty." Travis went still. His hand gripped the back of his own chair. He didn't interrupt. He let his son speak. Harper glanced at the cushion folded neatly quietly, waiting. It wasn't just a seat. It was a symbol, a silent promise that someone was remembered, that someone might come, that the table could grow if the heart allowed it. "I've never had anyone leave a seat for me," she admitted. Travis looked at her, and for the first time the suspicion in his eyes softened, even if only slightly. She stood to leave. Logan gave her a hug that caught her off guard, and Travis, without words, handed her a scarf she didn't realize had slipped from her bag. Outside, the city looked the same, cold, impatient, glittering with artificial light. But Harper's hands clutched a child's drawing, and her heart carried something new. A chair, left open. Not just for her body, but for her soul. The following days passed in a quiet ache Harper hadn't expected. She returned to her penthouse in the North Loop, floor-to-ceiling windows, touchscreen thermostats, silent walls. The drawing Logan had given her sat on the marble counter right next to a stack of shareholder reports and a crystal decanter no one ever used. She looked at that crayon drawing more than she cared to admit. 17 days went by. On the 18th she returned. She didn't bring an assistant, no driver, no press, just the scarf she'd left behind. The drawing folded carefully in her handbag and a knot of nerves she couldn't quite explain. When she buzzed their apartment, there was a long pause. Then the door opened slightly. Travis's face appeared through the crack. "Miss Lane," he said flatly. Harper held up the drawing and the scarf. "Logan forgot this." "You could have mailed it," he replied. She hesitated. "I don't like mailing things that matter." That made him pause. "Logan's at school," he said. "I pick him up at 3. I'm not here just for him." A silence stretched between them. She saw the calculation in his eyes, the weighing of motive and memory. Then, with a reluctant sigh, he opened the door wider. 15 minutes. I have a leaking pipe across town." She stepped in. The apartment hadn't changed. The mismatched cushions, the tinsel clinging stubbornly to the windowsill. But it felt different, quieter, without Logan's laughter, heavier with unfinished conversations. They sat at the table. Her chair still had the cushion. Travis poured her a mug of coffee. No questions asked. "You run a billion-dollar company," he said. "And yet, here you are, in a place where the heater sings, show tunes every morning." "I've had enough silence," Harper said. "Opera's an upgrade." He smirked, just slightly. "You're not what I expected," he said. "Neither are you." He looked at her for a long time. "Why are you really here?" Her voice dropped. "Because for once, I didn't feel like the one who needed fixing." That stopped him. The walls didn't fall, but something inside them shifted. And this time when she left, he didn't ask her not to come back. Spring came early that year. Not by weather, but by feeling. The snow melted off the rooftops of Lincoln Park, revealing brick and rust and hope that had survived the frost. Harper found herself visiting more often, sometimes bringing books for Logan, other times just showing up with no excuse at all. Travis never rolled out the red carpet, but he stopped locking the door right away. One Tuesday afternoon, she arrived with a small wrapped box and a thermos of split pea soup, homemade, but not by her. She'd traded favors with a chef friend to make it happen. Travis raised an eyebrow as he opened the door. "Bribery through legumes." She smirked. "Logan says you make the best pancakes. I thought I'd test your title." Logan squealed from behind him and ran to grab her hand. "We're making a sky today." Inside the apartment had become a low-budget observatory. Stars cut from yellow construction paper covered the ceiling, taped up with love and slightly too much Scotch tape. "That one's for Mom," Logan said, pointing at a star with a heart drawn in the middle. "She's up there now, so I made her a star with a smile." Harper's fingers stilled on the roll of tape. "She loves stories," Logan added. "I think she left her chair for someone else." "Do you think people do that?" Harper blinked. "I think maybe they do," she said. "And maybe someone notices the chair's still warm." Travis looked over, caught off guard by her answer. He didn't say anything, but something in his stance softened like a man finally exhaling after holding his breath too long. Later, after Logan fell asleep among the stars, Harper and Travis sat at the kitchen table with mugs of tea and no distractions. "He's a good kid," she said. "I've tried to give him a world that doesn't lie to him," Travis answered quietly. "Have you?" "I've tried." Harper looked out the window toward a city she no longer felt part of. I've spent my life building towers, but no one ever left a chair for me. Not until Logan. Not until you. This time, Travis didn't push her away. He simply listened. It happened on a Monday. A meeting Harper hadn't planned to attend landed on her calendar a development pitch for a new luxury smart complex on the east side. The address caught her eye. It was familiar. Too familiar. She excused herself midway through the presentation, her heart pounding. Because that address, it was Travis and Logan's building. The same one where she'd shared spaghetti laughter and crayon stars. The same one where a chair had been left just for her. And now, because of a document she'd authorized months ago, it was scheduled for demolition. She raced to her office, made the call, and shut it down. Or so she thought. The next morning, the apartment was empty. Gone. The door hung slightly ajar, a flyer taped to it. Notice to vacate, issued 2 days ago. Panic welled in her chest. She called, no answer. She texted, nothing. Her assistant finally tracked down the notice unpaid increase eviction processed before her cancellation took effect. They're gone, she whispered. That evening, she remembered something, a map Logan had once drawn for her on a napkin in case you ever want to find us when we're hiding. She found it, and she ran, through wind and streetlights to a small church shelter off Sheridan Avenue. Inside, the lights were low. A few people whispered quietly over bowls of soup. At the back, beneath a wall of faded flyers, she saw them. Travis tucking a blanket over Logan, who lay asleep on a cot, cheeks flushed. Harper didn't speak at first. Then softly, I got your letter. Travis turned slowly. His face said everything. Betrayal, exhaustion, disbelief. You said you weren't here to fix things, he said, but you broke them anyway. I didn't know. You had power. You used it without looking. She took a breath. I didn't come for forgiveness. I came to ask if there's still a seat, even if it's on the floor. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then quietly, he reached into his coat and handed her a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing. 3 people, 1 star. And underneath in Logan's handwriting, home is not a place. It's people who don't run. Harper's hands trembled. I'm not running, she whispered. And this time, Travis didn't tell her to leave. The shelter didn't have much. Thin mattresses, overcooked rice, a television that buzzed louder than it played. But Harper stayed. She curled up in a metal chair beside Logan's cot, draping a blanket around her shoulders, not for warmth, but because for the first time in her adult life, she wanted to stay in a place like this. The next morning, Logan stirred, blinking up at her. You stayed, he said, groggy but smiling. Harper nodded, voice catching. Of course. He looked around the shelter. It's not home, he said. But Dad says people can be home too. Tears pressed behind her eyes. She kissed the top of his head. Your dad's a smart man. Later back at her office, Harper made a decision. Not a grand boardroom-style one, but a quiet soul-level choice. She paused all involvement in the redevelopment project, formally, legally, and publicly. When the board pushed back, citing funders and losses, she stood her ground. I'm not interested in redemption, she told them. I'm interested in building something worth staying for. The backlash was swift, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she reached for something deeper, a blueprint Travis had once shown her in passing. A dream of his long abandoned a community center with a rooftop garden, affordable housing, and something he called the listening room. Harper dusted it off and got to work. Permits were slow. Fundraising came in fits and starts. She used her own money to cover the gaps. Neighbors stepped in, a retired plumber, a single mom who cooked for the volunteers, a pair of teens who painted murals after school, and Logan. Logan taped stars to the windows one by one. Harper brought books. Travis oversaw the rebuild. They didn't call it rebuilding a life. They just called it showing up. One evening, Logan handed Harper a fresh drawing, the same 3 stick figures. But this time, they stood in front of a building made of crayon and kindness. At the bottom, it read, Some stars don't shine until someone looks up. Harper looked down at him, and for the first time, she understood. The chair had never been just for her. It was for the version of her who finally chose to stay. The building wasn't much to look at yet. Its bricks were weather-worn, the facade cracked with decades of disregard. Inside, the floorboards creaked with every step, and the paint peeled like pages of an unread story. But to Harper, it was beautiful. Because now, it wasn't just a building. It was theirs. She stood beside Travis on the dusty front steps as volunteers poured in, neighbors, friends, strangers turned community. They scrubbed, painted, repaired. Some brought supplies. Others brought stories. Harper didn't direct. She listened. She rolled up her sleeves and held beams in place while Travis hammered. She swept the floors even when blisters formed. The woman who once made deals in glass towers now shared peanut butter sandwiches on milk crates with teens who'd never seen her name in the news. And the listening room. It came to life slowly. One afternoon, Logan ran in dragging a folding chair almost bigger than he was. "I brought this," he announced, "just in case someone shows up." Travis laughed. "For who, bud?" Logan shrugged. "The next Harper." That made her stop mid-step. She turned to look at him. "You think there'll be another one?" He nodded. "There's always someone." Harper crouched beside him. That might be the most important chair in the whole place. Bit by bit, the building became a reflection of everything they had built together, not with blueprints, but with trust, with grace, with sweat and shared silence. One evening, Harper found herself alone in what used to be a bare, echoing room. Now, it glowed with soft light. The walls were painted the color of peace. In the corner, a small bench waited beneath a window. She sat, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a visitor. She felt like a piece of the foundation. Outside, Logan added the final star to the welcome wall, one that Harper had drawn herself. It wasn't perfect. It was crooked, lopsided, but she signed it anyway. Beneath it, she wrote "Built with Hope," because it was no more penthouses, no more papers that push people out. This time, Harper wasn't leading a project. She was home. The blueprint had originally been designed for luxury. Harper had commissioned it over a year ago, a sleek glass-covered smart building with biometric locks, rooftop pools, and spaces no one in the actual neighborhood could afford. The plans were flawless on paper, but cold, lifeless. Now those same walls were being redrawn, not by architects in suits, but by people in hoodies, worn jeans, and work gloves. And at the heart of it all, Travis's original concept, his dream of a sanctuary. A place where people didn't just exist, but belonged. Harper renamed the project the Cornerstone. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest. Classrooms replaced concierge lounges. A rooftop garden replaced a helipad. There were reading nooks for kids' therapy rooms with open-door policies and a massive community kitchen filled with the smells of cinnamon stew and second chances. But the most important room was the listening room. Travis had once said, "It's just a space where people can sit and know someone hears them." Harper had laughed at the idea back then. Now she found herself painting its window frames with her own two hands. They left one wall blank on purpose, so someone else could finish it. "Every space shouldn't be complete," Travis told her one afternoon. "That way, others can add to it." Logan piped up. "It's like a conversation in colors." Harper smiled. "Exactly." One morning, she arrived early and found Logan placing chairs around the listening room's table. She noticed he'd added a small placard to one. It read, "Reserved for someone who doesn't know they're welcome yet." Harper's throat tightened. That was the kind of place they were building, not a development, but an invitation. And the community noticed. People began showing up. They didn't ask what Harper did for a living. They asked what color the reading room should be, or if she liked the idea of a story wall. She always said yes. Because for the first time, her role wasn't to control or approve. It was to be part of it. This wasn't a sanctuary created for people. It was one created with them and Harper Lane, the woman who once bulldozed neighborhoods for profit. She was now helping build one that could finally last. It was a crisp October afternoon when the ribbon-cutting ceremony finally arrived. The building stood proud on the corner of Oak and Monroe, reborn, repainted alive with color and chatter. Balloons waved lazily in the wind, children chased each other around the courtyard, and folding chairs filled with faces from every block of the neighborhood. Harper stood off to the side, dressed in jeans and a navy peacoat, holding a pair of golden scissors covered in glitter glue, Logan's handiwork. She wasn't used to moments like this. She was used to calculated press releases, not messy, joyful chaos. Travis nudged her. "You ready?" "No," she whispered, half laughing. "But let's do it anyway." She stepped up to the makeshift podium, just two stacked crates draped in a banner that read, "Room for Everyone." The crowd fell quiet. Harper looked out, scanning the faces, landing on one in particular, Logan front row, cross-legged, grinning like sunshine. She took a breath. 6 months ago, she began, I sat alone in the penthouse of a building I owned. Everything around me was smart, the fridge, the lights, even the bathtub. But none of it felt like home. She paused, her voice steady, heart open. Then one Christmas Eve, a little boy offered me spaghetti and toast. No expectations, no questions, just a seat at the table. Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. That seat, she continued, didn't just hold food. It held grace, grief, growing. She glanced at Travis, then back at Logan. And now this building stands not because of budgets or blueprints, but because of a single child-sized invitation. Would you like to have dinner with us? The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was warm. Logan jumped up and ran to her side. Ready? He asked, gripping the scissors. On three, Harper smiled. 1, 2, 3. The ribbon snapped. Applause rose again, joined by whoops and laughter, as kids rushed toward the entrance. Travis stepped up beside her. You did it, he said. Harper shook her head gently. We did it. Then they watched Logan disappear inside, leading a wave of giggles and sneakers through the doors. And just like that, the building wasn't just open. It was alive. That night, the rooftop of the newly opened Cornerstone Center felt like a planet of its own. Above the Chicago sky was velvet black dotted with stars that had finally shaken free from the city's usual haze. Below, the buzz of celebration had softened into a lull, kids tucked into sleeping bags, leftover lemonade, warming in paper cups, and laughter drifting like smoke from the fire pit. Harper sat cross-legged on a blanket, her blazer traded for a worn hoodie, her hair pulled into a loose braid. Beside her, Logan lay on his back, pointing a flashlight at constellations of his own invention. That one's the waffle dancer, he said, seriously tracing a crooked loop, and that one's the upside-down dinosaur. Travis chuckled from behind them, his legs stretched out, coffee cup in hand. Impressive astronomy, bud. Logan grinned but didn't take his eyes off the sky. I used to think rich people didn't get cold. Harper turned, surprised. Why's that? He shrugged. They always look warm in movies. Travis glanced at her, quiet, watchful. Logan went on. But now I think they just had someone next to them. That's what keeps people warm. Harper's breath caught in her throat. She didn't answer, because there was nothing to say that would add more weight than those simple, unguarded words from a 6-year-old who believed kindness could change the atmosphere. Later, when Logan fell asleep mid-sentence with a cookie still in his hand, Travis pulled 2 folding chairs to the edge of the rooftop. He handed Harper a steaming cup of real cocoa. I didn't know you could cook, she teased. I can't. Mrs. Hernandez downstairs did. I traded her a week of tutoring for her twins. Harper laughed. Resourceful. Survival skill, he said. They sat in silence, watching the glow of the community center below. Inside, volunteers swept the floor, tucked in late-arriving guests, and turned off lights room by room. Do you ever miss your old life? Travis asked softly. Harper sipped her cocoa. Sometimes, mostly the silence. He raised a brow. I used to think silence meant peace, she explained, but it was just loneliness dressed up as luxury. He nodded slowly. I used to think chaos meant failure. They shared a small, knowing smile, because now surrounded by paper stars and borrowed joy, they both knew better. The next morning, the air smelled like cinnamon toast and fresh paint. Sunlight spilled through the windows of the Cornerstone Center, stretching across the hardwood floors like it was eager to settle in. Somewhere down the hall, a coffee pot gurgled. Kids' voices echoed faintly from the reading room. Harper arrived just as the first rays touched the front steps. She wasn't there to make announcements. No cameras, no clipboard, just her. As she stepped closer to the door, something caught her eye. Taped to the glass just below, the etched words, Cornerstone Community Center, was a child's drawing. The lines were faded done in dull crayon on the back of a grocery receipt. It showed a building with stick figure people waving from the windows. Above them, stars. And at the center, a single chair. Beneath it, written in uneven print, for everyone still waiting for someone to stay. Harper stood frozen for a moment, her fingers brushing the edge of the paper, as if it might vanish. She knew that handwriting. It was Logan's. She stepped inside, heart heavy in her chest, but in the best way. The kind that reminded her she was still alive. The front desk was quiet. The hallway smelled like lemon-scented mop water and promise. She found Travis in the kitchen sleeves, rolled up, flipping pancakes like a pro. He looked up as she entered. "You're early," he said. She smiled, wanted to check on the stars. They're still up, he said. Logan won't let anyone touch them. They stood in silence for a beat. Then Travis gestured toward a small corner of the lobby where Logan had set up a new addition, a welcome chair made of plastic barely steady, but decorated in stickers and glitter paint. Beneath it, a sign read, "You don't need to ask. Just sit." Harper swallowed hard, because this wasn't just about chairs anymore. It was about people who'd been told through absence rejection, silence, that they weren't wanted. And this building, this community, it undid that lie, one seat at a time. And somewhere deep inside, Harper knew. They hadn't just built a center. They had built home. Logan was on the floor of the art room, surrounded by scissors, glue sticks, and construction paper galaxies. He'd been cutting stars all morning, some with 5 points, some with none at all. One looked like a potato with a smiley face. Each one was taped to the ceiling with the kind of care only a child could give. Travis leaned in the doorway, sipping his coffee. "How many stars do we need up there, kiddo?" Logan didn't look up. "As many as it takes to not feel alone at night." Travis smiled faintly. "That many, huh?" Harper stood just behind him, watching quietly. "He says things like that all the time," Travis murmured. "I don't know where he gets it." "I do," she said gently. "He gets it from being loved." Logan suddenly turned and pointed to a blue star in the corner. "That one's for Miss Harper. She left the sky in her big building, so now I brought it here." Harper stepped into the room, careful not to step on a paper moon. "I never had a sky like this," she said. Logan tilted his head. "You do now?" And she did. The ceiling, though uneven and peppered with childlike mistakes, was beautiful. Because it wasn't designed for profit or perfection, it was designed for presence. Harper knelt beside Logan and picked up a blank star. "Mind if I add one?" Logan grinned and handed her a marker. Later that day, a new volunteer arrived, a man Harper didn't recognize. He stood in the lobby hesitant with a duffel bag and worn shoes. He looked around like he wasn't sure if he belonged. Before anyone could speak, Logan walked up and pointed to the welcome chair. "You can sit there," he said. "We always leave it open, just in case." The man blinked stunned, then lowered himself into the seat like it was the first time he'd rested in days. Harper watched from the hallway. Her eyes stung. Because Logan's imagination, his unwavering belief in keeping a chair open, wasn't just cute. It was transformational. He didn't build a center. He'd sparked a movement. It wasn't a press release that marked the shift. It wasn't a headline or a shareholder tweet. It was quieter than that, a shift in rhythm, a new kind of gravity. One where Harper Lane wasn't just the name on a building permit, but a thread in the community's fabric. She still got calls, still had access to power, but the penthouse felt like another lifetime. She hadn't returned in weeks. Instead, her days were filled with laughter in the reading room, budget meetings in the kitchen, and paint-stained afternoons helping Logan dream up a marshmallow museum. Travis noticed the difference long before she did. "You don't check your phone as much," he said one night as they closed up the center together. Harper looked down at the untouched device in her coat pocket and smiled. "I guess I don't need to escape anymore." He raised an eyebrow. "And what are you escaping to exactly?" She didn't answer right away, but in the silence, her hand brushed against the edge of the welcome chair as they passed it still taped with Logan's note. "You don't need to ask. Just sit." That was the answer. She hadn't come to the Cornerstone Center for redemption. She hadn't come to save anyone. She had come to be part of something she didn't even know she needed belonging. One afternoon, Logan tugged on her sleeve while she organized supply shelves. "Miss Harper," he said, holding up a scribbled blueprint in orange crayon. "If we ever build another place like this, can we put a room just for dancing, like with sparkly lights and socks? Only rules." Harper crouched down, looked him square in the eyes, and said, "If we do, you get to name it." He grinned. "Then it's called The Room for No Worries." And just like that, another future was born. Because the real power of the center wasn't the walls or even the people inside it. It was the choice to keep showing up, to sit, to stay, to believe that even imperfect people can make something perfect enough to hold someone else's weight. Harper hadn't earned a place here. She had grown into it, one chair at a time. Autumn deepened, and with it came the quiet that Harper used to dread, but now she found peace in it. Leaves danced outside the windows of the Cornerstone Center. Inside the listening room stood almost complete. The walls had been painted a soft, calming blue. A few shelves held books on healing grief love. One corner remained bare left, intentionally unfinished. Harper sat in one of the two chairs in the middle of the room, the same pair that had anchored every major decision since construction began. Across from her sat Travis, a warm mug in his hands, eyes fixed gently on her. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked, taking it carefully. "Open it." Inside was a photograph, candid blurry around the edges, but perfect. It showed her, Travis and Logan, sitting on the rooftop weeks ago, wrapped in blankets, laughing at something no one remembered. Harper's smile in the photo looked real, undeniably real. "I never thanked you," Travis said, "for staying, for choosing us." She set the photo on the small table between them. "I didn't choose you," she said softly. "I remembered you." Travis frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She looked him in the eyes. "When I was a kid, I used to sit by a window and wonder if anyone would ever knock. Not for my ideas, not for my ambition, just for me." She paused. "Logan's invitation wasn't just dinner. It was an answer to a question I'd stopped asking." Travis swallowed hard. "You're not the same woman who showed up that night." "I hope not. You're better." Silence settled, but not the empty kind. It was the fullness of understanding, of presence. She reached out and took his hand across the table, steady and sure. No speeches, no fanfare, just two people who had stopped running long enough to find each other. In the corner of the room, the unfinished wall caught a sliver of sunlight, and Harper whispered, "Some chairs never go empty. They're just waiting for the right heart to come home." And in that moment, she was already there. As the sun dipped below the rooftops of the neighborhood, a warm amber glow spilled through the windows of the Cornerstone Center. The final guests had trickled out. The lights dimmed one by one, and in the quiet stillness of the evening, the building seemed to exhale not from exhaustion, but from fulfillment. Harper stood near the entrance keys in hand, looking back through the glass doors. Inside, Logan lay fast asleep on a pile of beanbags in the reading nook, a crayon still clutched in his tiny hand. Travis gently draped a blanket over him, his movements careful, reverent. Harper's eyes wandered to a plaque installed just that afternoon. She hadn't approved, it hadn't seen it coming. But it hit her with a weight she didn't expect. It read, "For everyone still waiting for someone to stay." Her breath caught. That single sentence etched into wood held the truth of everything they'd built. It wasn't about property value. It wasn't about strategy. It was about chairs left open, doors kept unlocked, and hearts brave enough to say, "I'm not leaving." Travis approached gently, shifting Logan into his arms. He looked at her, eyes tired but full. "You coming home with us?" he asked, voice low. Harper didn't answer right away. She turned once more, looking into the building, the shelves, the walls, the stars on the ceiling, the people who'd given it meaning. Then she nodded. "I'm already home." Weeks later, a man stood outside the center. His coat was tattered, his eyes wary. He wasn't knocking, just looking. Logan opened the door. "Hi," he said brightly. "Are you looking for someone?" The man shook his head. "Just passing through." Logan tilted his head. "Well, we've got food and seats and a really good couch." The man hesitated. "I don't think I belong." Logan smiled and pointed behind him. "We always keep a chair open, just in case." And with that, the man stepped inside, not as a guest, not as a burden, but as someone whose story had just found a place to begin. Because at the Cornerstone Center, no chair stayed empty for long.